Hello all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time zone you're joining us from. This is Delhi Power BI User Group presenting you August 2016 session. We are conducting a series of monsoon sessions, as you know, and this is one of the series. And we're delighted to have founders of Brunner BI, Greg and Klaus and Pedro from the development team. And they are going to speak about Measure Killer. They've developed a brilliant tool called as Measure Killer. I am sure you might have heard about it and also, tried working with it. It is a very important tool to work with Power BI as well as Tableau Cubes. And since we have the founders and the team who did the tool development with us, let's learn and explore it further from them. Welcome here, Greg, Klaus, and Pedro. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. We're super excited to be here and show you a live demo of the Measure Killer. Measure Killer is an external tool for Power BI Desktop. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. So then you can also see, 1 second, I'm going to go to the website. So the tool is like any other external tool. You need to download and install it onto your computer. You can do that from either measurekiller.com, or you can find it also in the Microsoft Store. So we're also there. Actually, the latest version is not there yet. I'm hoping it will be updated today, maybe tomorrow, because we just released a new version a few days ago. And it always takes some time for it to show up in the Microsoft Store. But you can also download it from the or get it from there. If you go on our website, in the download section, we have two versions. So for every version, we have basically two types of software. They're identical in what they do, but one needs admin rights on your machine, and the other one is a portable version, meaning you don't need admin rights on your computer to install it. But in the end, the analysis capabilities, whatever Measure Killer does, is identical. The only difference is that the admin version can be launched from within the external tools ribbon of Power BI. So all external tools you see here, you install them with admin rights. That's basically what you need the admin rights for. This is just how it is. And then otherwise, you can install the portable version. What does Measure Killer do? So Measure Killer can analyze your reports and datasets, and it will tell you which part of your dataset you need in your report and which part you don't need. So it's searching through everything in your report. It's searching through your model, the relationships, your measures, your calculated columns. If you use them, we recommend not to use calculated columns, obviously, but some people, of course, use them. And it gives you a huge analysis of everything. And I think it's best explained just by showing it. So I have this sales report here. It's just some sample report. You can see here we have some filters. We have a couple of charts. I have some bookmarks here, so I can also switch to the customers page. So this is standard Power BI report, I would say. You can also see that I have a couple of measures, even a calculated column here. I have a calendar table, some other tables. And now I want to analyze that in Measure Killer. And I want to see what Measure Killer is giving me as an output, right? So if I open up Measure Killer, we have 4 different modes. The first mode is a single report or data set. It means, like what I have here, all my data is right here imported into the model, no live connection to any data set or anything, no direct query, anything like this. Yeah. So I can analyze a single report through this mode here. And the second mode is for shared data sets. The third mode, shared data sets in the Power BI service. And the fourth mode is a admin mode where it can search through your whole Power BI tenant. So for example, you select one data set that you're interested in, and Measure Killer will search through the whole Power BI tenant in your organization. If somebody built a report on top of it, and that could be a paginated report or a Power BI report, and then it will find what is used in those reports, which part of the data set is used in those reports, and gives you that as an output, basically. Yeah, but we will see this later. Let's start with the single report and data set. That's what we have open here on my machine. So when I click here, the Measure Killer main window will open. One second, I just have to make sure I didn't, because I prepared this before. So if you launch Measure Killer from within the external tools ribbon, it automatically gets the port of the file, because Measure Killer needs two things. It needs the local instance of analysis services. This is basically the local host, the port here. And it also needs the PBIX file, meaning your Power BI file, and it gives this selection here of the latest Power BI files that you opened, and then you can select one of those. If it's none of those, you can click on this button here to find it in on your computer. But those two things are basically the things you need to select, and now you can click on Run. And then Measure Killer is doing its magic. You can see here that it took around 3 seconds. Measure Killer is telling me that I'm using 52% of my data model size. So that is the uncompressed size of your data model. It's around 3 megabytes. It's really tiny here. But it could be, of course, hundreds of megabytes, gigabytes, potentially. So that's very important that you can see right away how much of your data set you're actually using in your report, meaning either in a visual, in a measure. I'm referencing a column in one of my measures, for example. It could be in a relationship. Measure Killer is finding or can find active and inactive relationships. So it's basically searching everything. Because what we want to do is we want to optimize our data set or report. So Measure Killer will remove things that you don't need, or can remove things that you don't need, so we can make the report smaller and more efficient, and everything will be faster, right? So in this main window here, in this output, I can see I have those, I have every row here is one artifact in our data set. So it means it's either a measure or a column or a calculated column. Yeah, those are the only artifacts basically that exists. For example, if I go to the first one, this is my active customers measure, and I can see it's used. Yes, it's used. It's used once only. And here I can see it's used in the active customer versus profit ratio by year. That's just the name of it's the title of my visual, and it's on the customers page. Yeah. And then, for example, I can, I don't know, see the country column. For the columns, we also have their size. So for example, if I sort by the size, I can see the most costly column in my whole data model is the order number, part of the fact sales table, and it's not even used. So that immediately tells me that, oh, I can make this file much smaller. I can clean up this report really well, just by maybe kicking out this one column. But we have more. So if I go back to the country, for example, I can see when I open it up, it's used 4 times. It's used in an Azure map on the overview page. That's my map here. Let's see if this is true. Location, country, right? So this is basically how this whole thing comes together. And it's also used in a visual called, actually it's used in the map, and it says again, it's used in country. Wait a second. Okay, I'm just a little confused now, but yeah, so it's used here somewhere in the map, in the map visual, but then also it's used in the customers page. You can see here in active customers by country in that visual. So we can also double check that. And here we have it, active customers by country. I'm using country column in the y-axis. So yeah. So this is what you get as a main output. And now, of course, let's just say you're only interested in the unused stuff. I can click on this little button here. I only see the artifacts that are not used. And you can see we have quite a couple of columns. We have a few measures. And now in this menu here, I can go to kill measures, kill columns, hide unused columns. We have multiple options to what to do with unused artifacts. And the easiest is, of course, to just kill all unused measures. And you can see those year-to-date measures, they're not used anywhere. And if I go here, you can see they're right there. Those three, for example, I don't have to kill all. I can also select the measures to remove. So for example, I just want to get rid of those three year-to-date measures. I can go to kill selected. It's just confirming, do you really want to do that? I click on yes. And now there's a process running in the background, removing this from my data set. And you can see here that they're already gone. Like it takes 1 or 2 seconds, and now there's nothing there with year to date. And now Measure Killer is asking me to run again because this is still the old version, right? There's no like live connection or something. We have to run the analysis again. And of course, if it only takes a few seconds, I can do that. And now it's finished. Now you can see that those are gone here as well. So that's how we can remove measures. And then if you made a mistake or you did something by accident, whatever, you removed something, we have this backup or restore functionality. It's still in preview because we didn't get so much feedback on this yet. But you can see here that it lists all the times I removed a measure or calculated column in Measure Killer. And then I can put it back, basically. So now I put back all of those three, and I can say restore all, and then they will be back in my model, and no damage was done. And you can see here, boom, they just came back. And the cool thing is even including the formatting, comments, everything, it's just like before. Yeah. So if you make any mistake, you can also restore measures and columns, calculated columns. Yeah, measures and calculated columns. If you don't want, sorry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Like, I have a question. Like, how, like, do we have to create this backup, or it is automatically created in this?
Every time I remove something, you know, the backup I just added here, you can see here, I didn't create this backup. It automatically creates the backup with a date timestamp. So every time now I'm gonna do select, I'm just gonna remove maybe this one measure here. And now you can see that it created a new backup just because I did that. You can see here, boom, this is the second one. Second time I removed something, it always does a backup.
Is there any validity for this backup, that how long we can use this backup or something like that?
It will be forever stored on the computer, and it's also cross the reports. So meaning if you remove measures in a second report, you will have all the backups. Every time you removed a measure through Measure Killer, it will show up here. So it could even be a backup from a different report. We don't want to really get into this, but so you can have all the backups are here. Every time you removed a calculated column or a measure, it will create a backup also.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that's how we can remove measures, and that's good, right? But the really cool stuff is removing columns. There we can shrink the model size, we can make our report more efficient, we can maybe clean up our data model. That's where we think we can have the most impact. And there we have a couple of options. The most obvious is to generate a M code. So we cannot automatically remove columns through Measure Killer. In the UI, if you want to remove a column, you could do it here, click on delete or something. But in the end, when you want to do something, you need to go into Power Query. So what we built is kind of a semi-automatic solution that will provide a Power Query code for you to remove all the unused columns. And in Power Query, we have two functions for removing columns. We have remove columns, meaning actively selecting those two columns we want to remove, or we have remove other columns, meaning keeping the columns we want to keep. And I want to do a remove other columns because that's best practice in most cases. And then in the drop down here, you can see I have 4 tables to select. And those are all the tables in my data model that contain unused columns. So you only see the tables that have unused columns, where Measure Killer said, okay, I found something here. You could remove it. And you can see here that it's sorted by the total size. So the fact table is the first one. It has around 1.1 megabytes of storage I can save. So it's not the table size, it's the unused size. And it sums up all the columns in that table that are unused. So that's how it sorts this list. So the first one is the most obvious one to clean up. And you can see we have 2 columns here. I can click on apply. And now I get a new Power Query M code. And I'm going to copy this. And now I'm going to go into Power Query. So this is something I have to do kind of manually, but at least Measure Killer provides everything to me that I need. I go in here, I click on the advanced editor. And the only thing I need to do is I need to paste this in. And you can see that it just added 1 step at the end. And we will also be able to see this here. A new step, columns removed by Measure Killer as a new transformation step. And then those unused columns are basically gone. And that's, I think, a very safe way to remove unused columns, because if something goes wrong, we can always go back. Yeah. So if I choose to maybe keep one of the columns in later and not remove those 2, you can see I just click on this little wheel and I can say, oh, actually I want to keep order line item, and just select it, click on OK. Or if I just want to completely go back to what was before Measure Killer, I can just remove this step. And I have to do this with all my queries. So basically every table with those 4, I have to go here, click on apply, copy, and now I'm gonna paste it into the advanced editor, and this is how I can clean up my report. Yeah, I'm not gonna do it now, but this is how it works. You click on close and apply, and then you'll have the smaller version of your report. And then of course the assumption is that nothing breaks down, no visual breaks down, no measure, and things like that. That's basically what we're trying to do with Measure Killer. So here inside the kill columns menu, we can also remove automatically the calculated columns. So I think I only have 1 calculated column here, but I think it's this test one. So I can just delete all of them, click on yes. And now, like the measures, Measure Killer, and you can see it's gone. Measure Killer is running a process in the background, removing those calculated columns. And you can see it was here, now it's gone. Yeah. So measures and calculated columns can be deleted completely automatically in Measure Killer, and the normal columns, the ones that come into Power BI through Power Query, those we need to copy paste the M code. And this is how it works. Do we have any questions from the audience, from you guys, from anyone so far?
Yeah, anyone on Teams has any questions? We have pause here.
Okay. Cool.
I did have one, Greg. So I do understand that you mentioned that this also discovers any measures that are used, inside any calculation groups or any, for any kind of further complex.
Yes.
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 Whatever we implement, field expressions, field parameters. Okay. So anything
Yes,
throughout the length and breadth of a Power BI file, anywhere that is used, it will discover and bring it out, right?
Yeah, so field parameters, calculation groups, all this stuff is, I have an echo, but all of this is being detected. We have some limitations, and those are listed here on the website. So here, those are the only things we are aware of that do not work. And those are very, very specific things. For example, last week we saw that some sensitivity labels, like for example, confidential, could produce errors in Measure Killer because we can just not read the Power BI file. So we added it here. So if you want to make sure that everything is covered, you can just quickly read through this here. This is probably, I would say, less than 1% of the people will have something in here that could lead to false results. But like I said, so in 99% of the cases, everything should be fine. But if you have something very, very specific, maybe there could be a limitation. But generally, I think everything else should be covered. Yeah.
Yes, Rishabh, you can go ahead with the question.
Yeah, I just have a question. Can we also connect this dataset to our live dataset, or we just need to download that in our, I mean, we should have the dataset in our system. Is that compulsory?
Yeah, so the first mode of Measure Killer that I just showed is basically for this one local file. Yeah. The live connection, if you have Power BI Desktop and you have a live connection to the dataset, that does not work because we do not get the information from the dataset. We need always the report and the dataset, and through the live connection, the authentication, we cannot get anything from the dataset. So what you need to do is you need to add a local mode on the bottom right where it says live connection. You can add local mode and then it will switch to direct query. And in direct query, we have the information of the dataset. So if you then save your file, then you can run Measure Killer on that. That's the solution for this use case. But of course, Measure Killer has many more capabilities. For example, analyzing shared datasets, datasets that reside in the Power BI service. And I'm going to show this here in the third mode. The third and fourth mode require a Measure Killer license. So we're selling licenses for these online features. The first mode is free to use for anyone. The second mode is a shared dataset, but you need to download everything on your computer. So you need to have the dataset, plus you need to have all the thin files. I can just quickly show you how this works. So one second, I have to open the dataset. So imagine I have a dataset and I have a couple of reports connected to that dataset, right? I can analyze that in Measure Killer as well, and that's very powerful, I think. So what I need to do is I need to download everything, the dataset and the thin files. So here, for example, I have 3 reports. They have a live connection to the Power BI dataset in the service. And then I'm going to download everything. So I'm going to go basically here, download, here, I'm going to download. And then what I need to do is I need to open the dataset. That's what I'm doing right now. Let's see, here it should be my weather dataset. And this only has the data, obviously. There's no real report or anything in there, but I need to have it open because then Measure Killer can get the information it needs, yeah? So I'm gonna have this here, 1 second. So I'm gonna have the dataset open. I run this second mode. And you can see here now, it's asking for the datasets port. That's basically the Power BI I have open now. The dataset file, that's the last file I open. And now I can add the thin files, basically the reports having live connection. And I can either add a single file or I can add files from a folder. And in my case, I have everything in this thin files folder. So I'm just going to add the whole folder. I can even drag and drop stuff. So I think I can drag and drop all those 3 reports even. So three reports and the dataset. I'm going to go to apply. I added everything here. I can go to run. You can see here, dataset is a weather dataset. Those reports, boom, finished. And what do I get now? I can see that the continent column, which is part of my dataset, is used in a slicer in the wind report, in the temperature report, in the rain report. It's used in a visual here. I can see everything. And I can also see that some artifacts, some columns, some measures are not used at all. For example, this wind degree column is my 5th biggest column of my dataset, and it's not used anywhere. So in this case, I could remove stuff from my dataset and just clean it up, make it smaller. Maybe nobody really needs this thing. Yeah. And that's basically the offline analysis that is part of the free version of Measure Killer, where you can analyze shared datasets. The third mode, and now it's getting interesting, I would say, is when we jump into the Power BI service, because we don't always want to download stuff. And especially in bigger organizations, maybe you have datasets you're not allowed to download. They're maybe too big. They're large datasets format, or it's just you modified it through XMLA. You cannot download them anymore. You need to keep them in the Power BI service. For that, we built this premium version of Measure Killer, basically, where people need to buy a Measure Killer license also. And here you can see that I can analyze now this weather data set that resides here in my MK workspace in the Power BI service. And so I'm going to go to the MK workspace. I'm going to say, give me all the data sets. This also has to be a premium workspace. We're doing an XMLA connection to that data set, and that's a premium feature. So the workspace has to be a premium workspace. And now I'm going to select the weather dataset. Now we're going to do the connection to the XMLA endpoint. I have to authenticate again for that. It's a different way of authentication. And now something else pops up. Those are all the workspaces in my tenant that I have access to. So I'm basically, now I have the option to say, okay, so I selected the data set already, right? But now I'm asked by Measure Killer, where do you want to search for connected reports? Because somebody could have built reports here on top of this data set, and maybe I'm interested in that. So I can either, I don't know, choose them individually or just select all, because I'm curious. Maybe there are a lot of reports. I don't know. I'm just going to select all, and I'm going to click on reports. Now it's loading. You can see here there's a little loading button. It's searching for connected reports. And then here we go. So we have quite a few reports actually. So these were all built on top of the weather data set. And you can see most of those reports are in this MK workspace. Those are basically the ones here, right? In the lineage view of Power BI, I can see it too. But we also have one report.
Across workspaces? You mentioned that it's from one workspace.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
No, you can see this is a different workspace, right?
Right. Okay.
So it finds that too. This is tied. It's tied to my personal user. So whatever I have access to, those workspaces it will search.
Okay.
And you can see it automatically also finds paginated reports that were built on top of this data set. And it will analyze those as well. And what we even can do is, that's pretty new, we can add, for example, analyzing Excel files. We can add Power BI, other Power BI files that maybe nobody uploaded. I want to add them manually. I can drag and drop stuff into here. If I want to put something or add something on top of this analysis. So I can do that, or I can also take out some from here. So I have full customization on which reports I really want to do my analysis on, because maybe those are test reports here. Those test reports, I don't care. I'm going to take them out. But then those I want to keep in. This I'm going to keep in, because the test reports, if something will crash, because it's all about optimizing the data set, making it smaller, and I'm going to have maybe 6, 7 reports that are important that should survive after the optimization, right? And the other ones, they can break. Nobody cares. They're test reports, whatever. Somebody was experimenting. And then I click on Run. Click on OK. And now it's exporting the metadata from the dataset and the reports from the Power BI service. And it runs the same analysis as before, just on top of maybe in this case, a little more reports. We have like 7, 8, 9, I don't know. And you can see it takes some time, but usually it just takes a few seconds. And now I get this analysis. I can see everywhere stuff is used. And I can decide to clean it up, based on this analysis, and remove all the unused stuff from my dataset. Yeah. Here, of course, I cannot automatically delete stuff because we're connected to the Power BI service, right? We're not gonna write anything there. We're not gonna destroy anything there. Now, if you want to remove something, you can either you get a C# script, or you can get this M code, and then you can do it in the dataset yourself. Yeah. So there are different ways to do it, but generally this just provides the analysis, and then it's up to you in which tool or how you want to clean up the dataset. Okay, so this third mode is basically analyzing everything that I have access to, right? I authenticated with my personal user here, and I saw that there were reports in this MK workspace and then in the Measure Killer workspace. But imagine I don't have access to all the workspaces in our tenant, maybe. Even if I'm an admin, I don't see all workspaces here. Only in the admin portal, I will see all the workspaces, right? And then I have to manually give myself, here I can see all the workspaces in our tenant. This is the only way, and only place, at least what I'm aware of, where you can see all the workspaces. And then I would have to give myself access to those manually, because somebody could have built a report in a department that I'm not a member of. I don't even know, maybe they exist, but they could have built a report on top of my data set that I want to analyze. And the interesting thing is, when I go to show impact across workspaces, you can see here, I see 2 workspaces, right? That's exactly what we saw before. Those reports in the 2 workspaces. But This is because this view is not complete. I am actually now a tenant admin in our tenant, but still I only see those two workspaces, meaning I assume that there's nothing else. But when I run the Measure Killer tenant admin mode with the same stuff, MK, this weather data set, now we're doing admin API calls because in our tenant, I'm a Power BI tenant admin. So those people can really make a good analysis because they can make sure that they will get all the reports that are anywhere inside the Power BI tenant. And you can see here, and now I have a lot more workspaces because those are all the workspaces in our tenant. And when I go to reports now, it's going to do those admin API calls to search through the whole tenant for reports that were built on top of this weather dataset. And you can see there's more. There's a lot more. PPU test workspace. Apparently somebody built in the forgotten workspace, somebody built the abandoned report. I mean, of course, this is just for testing, right? But it's just different, right? And you can see this is wrong. Yeah, this is, I'm a tenant admin, but I don't see it. It's really, I think, yeah, maybe they have this little information here, but still I'm a Power BI administrator. I assume I would see everything here, but it's not the case. So now I could run Measure Killer here and get the full analysis. Yeah. And it's quite a few reports. So I'm just gonna see. Since I do not have access to those reports, in order to do its analysis, Measure Killer will give me temporarily access to those workspaces. That's the only way we can do it. So I'm gonna give myself access to those 4 workspaces. I'm gonna say yes. You can see here, those 4 workspaces I didn't have access to before. I will even see them show up here. I'm just gonna refresh. And you can see then this test and PPU. Here it is, test 66, 67, PPU test. Now I can see them. Now I have access to those workspaces because Measure Killer is granting me that through an admin API call. Yeah. And we have a little cooldown. That's why it didn't start right away, because it takes a few seconds. And now it's doing the analysis on all those reports. Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. And now it's basically finished. And it says, hey, should we remove this access again? Because maybe, yeah, maybe even the admin, maybe I shouldn't even have access to those workspaces. Now I can say, okay, just remove this access again. Gonna click on yes. And now basically Measure Killer is doing its analysis. And at the same time, it's removing the access to those workspaces. So basically what I see here is PPU test. It will go away soon because Measure Killer now revoked the access again, because you can see here removing access, and that's it. Yeah. So now we have a full analysis on searching our whole tenant, and now we can make sure that whatever is in the unused, we can actually cut from the dataset. But what's important here is you can see that some of the unused measures or columns are not part of the dataset because, as you know, when I build a report with a live connection on a dataset, I could add measures. So this is a measure that was added in this temperature report, and it only exists in that report. It's not part of the dataset. That's why here we actually also see some artifacts, some measures that belong to the reports. Yeah. And just to prove that I actually don't have access to this anymore, I'm going to refresh here, and you can see that, oh, I still have access actually. No, it should go away. Oh, now it's disappearing. It takes some time. To update those permissions, and now it's gone. It takes a few seconds always, the Power BI service to update those permissions. That's why it takes a little bit, but now you can see that it's just like before. So this is the ultimate version of Measure Killer, this tenant admin mode, where you can really make sure you don't miss anything. So I've talked so much now. Maybe you have some questions.
Do we anyone on the YouTube stream yet?
I have a question, because these are the external tools there. So generally, in financial industries, in industries that are more compliant, more restrict based, correct? So how easily an adoption from a security perspective for these tools are, right? Because you get a lot of concerns raised from CISOs, security people around that external tools are mostly prohibited, right? So they don't want to do it with those external tools. But if tool brings a quality like this, then how quickly and easily these are adaptable to those? What you would say to them to ensure that they are satisfied enough to get this onboarded?
Right. Yeah, good point. I know how it is in a lot of organizations. People are very careful. There are a lot of processes and rules around this. Of course, it's a software that you need to install on the company laptop. First of all, Measure Killer can also run offline. So there's an offline mode. So that's maybe something that can be useful. And then, of course, we always get those requests like, what is Measure Killer doing? What exactly, how does it work? Is there anything sent out? That's actually why we have a section on our website, this security info part of the Measure Killer website is very transparent, I think, in what exactly we're doing. We say here that basically we only do an API call to our servers to check if you have the paid version or not. Yeah. So we only get something when you open up Measure Killer, we get your IP address, we check the license, and basically everything else after that is Power BI REST API calls, Power BI, I don't know, XMLA connection. We have no idea what's going on there. It's basically between your client and Microsoft. Yeah. So, and it's basically documented here which API calls we're doing, and what exactly we're getting. And like I said, we're only getting your IP address and license information. That's it. Yeah.
And any of the organizations that have adopted it at an organization level, because where they have run those their security scans, are there any just
Yeah.
for the because we are trying to figure this out also within our organization, just an FYI.
Right.
So we are trying to do
Yeah.
that part. And how does Microsoft recognizes this Measure Killer as one of like Tableau Editor? At least Microsoft also recommends from their own perspective as well. I'm just giving an example.
Right.
So this is so if is the Microsoft already onboarded with this one or not or something like that?
Yeah, so Microsoft officially supports certain tools. That's correct. There's some things that Microsoft guarantees you to work. Like, for example, the model part of a Power BI file is what is officially supported, meaning tools like Tabular Editor are officially recommended by Microsoft. We're also in touch with them, of course, because it's very important for the development of our tool also to know what they're doing, what they're planning. The thing is that we're analyzing the reports, right? I think Measure Killer is one of the only tools analyzing the report, meaning, I don't know, what is in the filters, the visuals and all this. And Microsoft does not officially support that because they don't know, it's undocumented.
I know what you're saying because what will happen because when we obviously Measure Killer has to scanning the reports, it will not even know whether the measures are being used or not used, or which are the unusable ones and all those things. But the problem always comes with these kinds is that when you start scanning reports, it has to be very well versed with, proven that it does not stores this data into your things or anyway, because these are financial numbers, financial states, and
Right.
all that stuff. Okay, so that's where I was just a little bit wanted to understand exactly how the security works around it. And
Yeah.
I'll go by your
Yeah.
word that you say that okay, it's only scans one time only for the license, nothing else, and else you can use it on the offline mode. That's more than fine
Yes.
enough. But
Exactly.
that needs to
Mhm.
yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
like I
go
said,
ahead,
if
sorry,
you're
sorry.
really worried and you don't trust us, then you can run it
No,
offline.
no. Yeah, no, George, it's not about trusting. You know how CISOs, how banking industry
I
is,
know.
financial industry. So when it comes to and when the banking are in Europe, it has more stringent rules and more
Right.
strict governance
Yeah.
governance around it, right? It's not about trusting. It's not about CISO does not trust anyone. They don't trust the people sitting next to
I
them.
know.
Also, they don't trust.
I know that's why I'm like we're writing this, but still some people they won't trust us because they said, hey, we don't really know what they're doing. You can also configure a proxy. That might also help a little bit. So then the traffic
Okay.
will go through here. Yeah, or worst case, put it on an isolated machine, run it there, and then
Okay.
go from that. Those are the recommendations I have. Yeah.
Thanks for clearing it up.
Sure.
Sorry, Abhinav, I took it in between.
No, that's fine. There are some important questions, right? And at the end of the day, thanks to ask those. Thanks much for like also showing that where this documentation is available.
Abhinav, you're echoing it out. Echoing it out. I don't know why there's some echo around you, your voice.
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
All right. So, Frick, one question: have you tested it against the tabular cubes running independently? Because I did try to connect once Measure Killer. I didn't have the paid version, so I was running it on my local. But have you done that? Because end of day, right? Except for the analytics version that you have on the Power BI dataset or the EAS dataset. I mean to say EAS tabular queue. There's not much difference, right, between both of them. In fact, these days we are deploying tabular cubes directly to Power BI and using that for live connection.
Yeah, so there are some limitations when it comes to that. We have also in the details area, we have a compatibility list. So you can see here the direct query, composite models, whatever is supported. And then, for example, if you have a live connection to analysis services or to a data mart, that doesn't work unless you're able to switch to direct query. Because like I said, then basically we have the model locally. So that will resolve some issues. And here you basically can find what works from an architectural point of view and what doesn't. Like, for example, dashboards, they only exist in a Power BI service. They're built on top of reports anyway, but you cannot analyze a dashboard in Measure. It doesn't make sense either. Yeah.
Right. So actually what gave me this impression was that you mentioned that using shared datasets, right? Shared datasets are actually the ones that are connected to thin client reports. And then you showed that how thin client reports, Measure Killer is also able to identify things out of thin client reports, which are nothing but live connections, right? Which are adding more measures to themselves, right?
Yes.
Or by thin client reports, did you mean that those are operating in direct query capacity only?
No, a thin file is connected through a live connection to a Power BI dataset. Yes,
right.
And like what I showed you, right? All the analysis we did here, those are all thin files. They have live connections to here.
Right.
But if you have a paid version, you can analyze them while they're in the service. You don't need to do anything. If you don't have a paid version, you need to download this. For example, if I want to analyze this, I need to download it and then switch to direct query. Because if you only have this thing open, we have no idea what's going on here. The live connection is encrypting everything. Like We don't have
Right.
any information. But if you switch to direct query, it will provide that information and we can run the analysis.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
that means that in a particular setup that I have some of these that where this weather data set that you have is actually built on SSAS that's built on analysis services and deployed to Power BI. So everything is just the same, just that this weather data set is not built in
Yeah.
Power BI. It's built using SQL Server analysis services, and it is deployed here. And then Power BI reports are running out of that that data set.
Any Power BI data set that you have where you have like you imported data, yeah, anything
Right.
like that will work. We
Okay.
didn't really want to build anything specific to analysis services or Azure analysis services because in the end, sooner or later, everybody will migrate to Power BI Premium anyway. So at least that's the plan from Microsoft, I think. So we thought let's look at the future and not so yeah.
Correct. Right. And I have the impression that this will work smooth because we are moving analysis services databases to Power BI, and that's where we are we run the Power BI reports on top of those. So it's pretty similar setup. Probably I'll try it out and let you know. I don't have the premium one, but we can interact about that so that we find out that when you have AS cubes moving to Power BI, whether we are able to find this out. Because an important component there is that when you're moving legacy to cloud, right, or from on-premise SSAS to Power BI, you want to identify what is all the clutter. That is like what is not needed. And that's where I think Measure Killer can play an important role in scanning those on-premise legacy cubes, tabular cubes, once they are into Power BI, not on-prem, but once they are into Power BI, and thereby we can eliminate this. So I believe that this is something worth trying out and it will help a lot.
That's actually a really good point, yeah, because especially during their migration, you care about not bringing all the fat, but cutting that off, right? That's actually a really good point, yeah. So yeah, if it doesn't work, then I would just put it into Power BI anyway, and then analyze it, and then modify your model.
Right.
Maybe that's the
yes,
right.
Yes.
That's
yes, which we anyways do to test the compatibility of Power BI reports as well.
right.
So that's actually the first step. So it is actually moved then tested.
But if it's done before then it's easier, right? You're migrating lesser. You're already eliminating the wrong stuff before.
Right, but we always have a test environment where you test workspace, dev workspace, where you migrate that, do all this testing, elimination, and then make it ready for the environment. So I think that can be done. So anyone else have a question? I believe there was one on YouTube which Krovin answered. That was about that. Is it open source, available in open source or paid content? I believe Craig, you have already clarified that there is a premium version and the one there's a light version available.
It's not open source. This is basically what we developed in my team. We do provide some insights, basically for security purposes, but generally it's not open source. And like I said, the first two modes of Measure Killer, everything locally, everything you do, all the files, if you have files on your machine, you can run Measure Killer for free. And then if you want to analyze things in the Power BI service, you need to buy a license which would unlock those two modes. So in the free version, you can only run those two, and those are grayed out. And if you add a license, you will have access to the third and fourth mode. We have some licensing options for smaller teams or small organizations, like premium, basically the ones having premium per user. It's like 200 per year. And that only works in premium per user workspaces. And then we have a consultant license because a lot of people also, they want to run this for their clients, right? That is like 550 Swiss francs per year. And then for the really big organizations, premium capacity basically plus dedicated support from us, it costs like 1,000 per year. Yeah. And like I said, those unlock the third and fourth mode, and then you can keep your reports, your data sets, everything in the Power BI service, and you don't need to download everything. So that's basically where we separate. If you have premium, you also need to pay. If you do everything locally, you search for, you download the files yourself, you do everything, then you can use the free version. Yeah. I mean, this weather data set that I showed is basically a golden data set, right? We have all kinds of stuff built on it, paginated reports, Power BI reports, multiple workspaces. It could be a certified, it could be a golden data set if you want to call that. And of course, we will get all this, right? We will see which columns of this data set are used in the Power BI reports, which are used in a paginated report, whatever. And then you will realize that maybe 25% of this golden data set, 25% of the size of this golden data set is not used at all.
I think what user wanted to check was the lineage instead if it's coming across, and is there any lineage view to it? Maybe I missed that part.
So the only thing you see is, let me just share my screen again. There's no lineage like you have in the Power BI service, really, but what you can see is you select the data set, right? Go here, for example, the weather data set. And then if I just search everything in the admin mode, in the tenant admin mode, then of course I will see that all of those reports are connected to my data set. So that's maybe, yeah, that's the lineage that we have. And then of course, if you want to go back, you can restart this thing and you can select a different data set. I can select, I don't know, I have this Corona stuff. I'm gonna Corona data set. Now I'm gonna search everything, and now it will give me all the connected reports. So, and that's actually better than the lineage you have in Power BI, because like I said, we're searching the whole tenant, and in the lineage here,
Is
only
that a
see
lineage itself? Is that a lineage itself? I don't consider this a lineage, to be honest.
Yeah, obviously graphically this is better, but this is missing some stuff, right? Yeah.
It's
Just my
missing the
point.
real content, right? Because the content of the data sets at that column level and all those things are missing.
No, it's missing the workspaces that I don't have access to personally, and measure killers through the admin API calls will find everything. But of course, you need to be a tenant admin.
Yeah.
There's a follow-up question from Sabah Revel, who asked about this golden data sets. That with the paid version, still do we need to download the thin reports?
No, everything is online. Like I just showed you, the paid version, everything can stay in the Power BI service. You can even analyze reports that you cannot download. So there are some reports that cannot be downloaded from the Power BI service. Let me find one.
Oh yes, right. The ones with incremental load, XML endpoint.
Exactly. All kinds of, for example, if I build it in the even if I build it in the browser, those kind of things, no download possible, but we can analyze it. Yeah.
Awesome. I think we are at the top of the hour now. If there are no further questions through in on the stream, I do not see in the Teams channel. Okay. All right.
Maybe Greg, we are giving you a lot of ideas to to make it further another steps on the tooling.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really important to get feedback from a lot of people. We're encouraging everyone to download it and give it a try. The Power BI community is so vibrant, and the external tools like us, we need your feedback. We need people to tell us how everything goes. And we actually have a feedback section on the website. So I'm just gonna put that maybe in the chat. That's where we collect feedback from the community, errors, people who have trouble with something in Measure Killer. Yeah, so thank you so much.
Sure. Thanks much, Greg, for sharing that. And this was really informative and learning session. We loved how you described and showed us around. You said I know most of the people who joined are going to download it and use it if they have not done so already. And now that we have this working session that we saw you demonstrating with that, we'll be able to go about and apply it in the scenarios that we have and the reports that we are developing at hand. So thank you so much, Greg, for joining us, and thanks Pedro and Klaus too for joining. And I believe it's been a great learning. Thanks so much for joining today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.